Semitic language anymore, but a Afro-Asiatic language, and the only non-African language in the Afro-Asiatic family is the Arabic language. But all the other languages, Chadic, for example, Kemetic and Cushitic, that's Ethiopian, Egyptian, Chad, Libyan, those languages all fit together as a family of languages, and they are basically all anchored on the African continent. So to say Afro-Asiatic is really kind of misleading because there's not much Asia in any of those groupings. So the unity of language also shows the unity of culture and suggests the unity of people.
Okay, now you've talked quite a bit about this chart. You referred to it quite a bit.
Right.
But I want you to go through this chart and give the chart its own special place. Okay.
You want the chart to have a special place in the program.
That's right.
That's because your people work so hard to create it.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, this is a summary then of the Kemetic timeline related to other important African events. Once again, cultural Kemet, over 3,000 years. Political Kemet is a shorter period of time. In other words, the nation gets organized here, and they go through some troubles, but basically natives control during these 4 golden ages. Breakdown period, a foreign invasion. Abraham is given a date, according to biblical scholars, is somewhere around 1750, just so people who know their Bible will know where that falls. And it's suggested that he may have come in with this invading group. And Moses is around 1300 BC, somewhere around there. No one is certain, and one of these pharaohs in here is supposed to be the pharaoh of the Exodus, so that will give some sense of chronology with respect to biblical events.
But when Abraham came on the scene,
right,
what had these Africans already achieved?
Well, you had 2 golden ages already finished. The Pyramid Age was finished, and the Literary Age was already finished by then. The Bible was in place, the Pyramid were in place, astronomy was in place, language was in place, writing was in place, etc.
The Africans there, they already
well
believed in resurrection.
Already believed in one God, and they already believed in resurrection. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The Persians then come in here, and this is the death blow to ancient Kemet's governance, not to its culture. See, the culture still lasts. That's this line here. Here's the Persians, and the culture, they didn't change the way of life. The Greeks come in, they didn't change the way of life. The Romans came in and tried to change it, but didn't change it substantially, even though they destroyed temples and schools and churches. The way of life didn't really get changed until their conversion to Islam down here. So that we will now, let's take a look at this. European slavery doesn't really start until 1500 AD. And so here's all of this ancient African history back here that's left mostly out of our children and our adults' education as well. Arab slavery needs to be put on the board too, because in East Africa there was a very vicious and brutal Arab slavery in East Africa. And then European colonialism begins in 1884 and is still going on as far as Southern Africa is concerned. So we see these events in relationship to the ancient Kemet. One more thing, which has to do with the University of Sankore, that it was in different territories, in the same territory called by different names, Ghana, Songhai, and Mali. But the city of Timbuktu becomes very important as one of several major university cities in West Africa. And I just wanted to make sure that we knew roughly where Sankore was. It begins somewhere around 1200 and goes all the way up till after 1600. That's the end of Sankore. And this is important because it was a great university in the ancient world, and many of its faculty were taken to Morocco, and they had this university, by the way, when many European nations didn't have much in the way of universities at all.
These Africans already knew that a mine was a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah.
Back then.
I wonder if they made any money.
Now, obviously, the reason that you research all of this is not just so that African people can feel good about ourselves. What is the ultimate objective?
Well, the ultimate objective is to force a truthful rendition of the human experience. That, in other words, we must know what the truth is about humanity so that we can know what the truth is about ourselves, so that we can be not just feeling good about ourselves, but that we can become whole people. And you can't be a part of the human family unless you are a creative part of the human family, and therefore you must claim your own creativity. Don't claim any more than you created, but you must claim your own creativity.
Is there some value to the process of studying ancient African history?
It's a very liberating process. The process of studying ancient African history is one that will take you into many waters. For example, it will take you into the waters of the defamation of African people. You will begin to see the calculated way that some people have tried to destroy African memory and African culture. And it's very important for us to understand that these things have not happened by accident. It's important so that we will recognize when defamation occurs, that it is occurring, and that we will understand the motivations of those who do that, and that we will know who the people are who do those things and how they do it. And that's the only way that we can defend ourselves against these kinds of things.
Do you think we understand how much effort has been put forth to keep this information about ancient Egypt and Nile Valley civilization out of the hands and minds of African people? Do you think we understand?
No, I don't think we have any idea of the mechanisms or the intensity of the effort, how long it's been going on, and the fact that it's still going on. In other words, for example, most of the pictures that I've shown in this slide presentation so far are pictures that most people have never seen before. Not because they weren't there, but the decision was made to use other pictures. The decision to use Nefertiti rather than T is a decision that you have to evaluate in terms of its meaning for Egyptian history or Kemetic history. For example, Queen T was more important than Nefertiti. But Nefertiti stands as the symbol of the typical Kemite. And that has to do with the, I think, the ulterior motives of people who do the research.
Now, how has the writing of history by European writers, historians, helped to promote what some have called the Europeanization of human consciousness?
Well, if the total source of your information is from a group of scholars that comes from one culture, they're imprisoned in their own culture, and most of them even don't have the capacity to stand outside the culture and to view it critically in the first place, and some don't even have the intent to do that. So there's nothing that they can present other than a focus that comes from their own center, which we call European-centered. And if I, as a person who studies, do so uncritically, or if I don't participate in the production of scholarship, raising the kinds of questions and priorities that I need to know about as an African person, a person of African descent, from an African-centered perspective, then there's nothing left for me but a European-centered information base, which will produce in my head a European way of viewing the world, even though I'm a person of African descent.
Let's break it down. How does European consciousness manifest itself in our lives? A couple of examples.
It manifests itself in self-hatred, where African people actually accept the doctrine of white supremacy and believe that white people are superior to black people, so much so that they reject their own historical memories, they reject identification with their brothers and sisters, they reject identification with Africa, they reject identification with African culture. You know, this is literally cultural suicide. And the reason is that it's so painful sometimes to be associated with the kinds of images that are projected about African people, the false images.
When I wrote this question down, I had no idea your answer would be that great.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that great.
Do you think we realize the extent to which we are controlled by European thinking?
No.